The dawn sky glowed faintly pink above the airport, streaks of light cutting through the morning haze as the world slowly came to life. The distant rumble of jet engines echoed across the tarmac, mixed with the rhythmic beeping of service vehicles and the faint chatter of ground crew. Captain Lara Mitchell stood by the base of the jet bridge, a tall, graceful figure in her navy blue pilot uniform. Her gold captain's stripes gleamed softly under the terminal lights. She took a quiet breath, feeling the familiar blend of focus and peace that always came before a flight. This moment, right before stepping into the cockpit, was her ritual. The Boeing 737-800 stood ahead, gleaming silver under the rising sun. It wasn't just a machine to her. It was her second home, her sanctuary above the clouds. The reflection of the aircraft shimmered on the wet tarmac as the morning dew clung to its fuselage. She walked across the jet bridge, clipboard in hand, heels clicking softly against the metal floor. Her movements were composed, practiced, and confident. Every flight began the same way, but no two takeoffs ever felt alike. Inside the cockpit, the air smelled faintly of warm electronics and clean fabric. The overhead panel blinked with tiny amber and green lights, each one a heartbeat of the aircraft. Lara placed her flight bag on the right seat, straightened her cap, and slid gracefully into the captain's seat. The GoPro camera, mounted neatly above the central instrument panel, blinked once, a small red light that would capture everything from pushback to touchdown. She had started recording her cockpit journeys months ago, not for fame, but to share the unseen beauty of aviation, the calm precision, the quiet teamwork, the serenity behind every safe landing. Her co-pilot, Jason, entered a moment later, cheerful as always, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Morning, Captain. Black, no sugar, just like always." Lara accepted the cup with a small smile. "You remember well, Jason. Can't forget the essentials," he said, sliding into the right seat and glancing at the engine status displays. "Everything looks perfect today. Weather's clear, winds are mild, should be a smooth one." "Let's hope so," she replied, her voice calm and melodic through the headset. She pressed a few buttons on the overhead panel, running through the pre-flight checklist with quiet precision. Her hands moved naturally. Throttle, autopilot, APU, fuel pumps, each switch flicked with the confidence of thousands of flight hours. "Battery on. Standby power auto. Navigation lights on," Jason read aloud. "Checked," she confirmed. They continued their flow, voices overlapping in a steady rhythm. It was almost like a symphony, each word and movement perfectly timed, each light that turned green a note of harmony. Outside the cockpit windows, the world moved in silence. A fuel truck pulled away. A ground marshal gave a thumbs up. The boarding bridge retracted slowly. Passengers began settling into their seats, unaware of the quiet choreography taking place at the front of the aircraft. Lara adjusted the rudder pedals, aligning them just right for her stance. "Trim set, flaps 5, she said softly. Jason nodded, eyes on his screen. "Fuel on board, 15.8 thousand kilograms. Route verified. Weather checked." She glanced out the window again. The runway shimmered in the morning light, the sky slowly transforming from pink to pale blue. She could feel the gentle thrum of the auxiliary power unit vibrating through the floor, the heartbeat of the plane waking up. As she adjusted her headset, a moment of quiet filled the cockpit. Lara looked up at the GoPro lens, that tiny, unblinking eye that would soon record her takeoff. A small smile crossed her face. "Let's give them a beautiful flight," she said, her voice steady, confident and warm. Jason grinned. "Always, Captain." She tapped the flight controls lightly, feeling the hydraulic feedback respond beneath her fingertips. There was a special kind of peace in those moments before taxi, a stillness that existed only between preparation and motion. The plane was ready, the crew was ready, and the sky was calling. "Pre-flight complete," Jason reported. "Excellent," Lara replied, noting the time in her logbook. "Pushback in 5. She glanced briefly at the reflection in the cockpit glass, her own calm eyes beneath the brim of her hat, the glow of instruments painting her face in amber light. She wasn't thinking about the cameras or the passengers or the world below. She was thinking about lift, balance, precision, the quiet dance of air and metal that only pilots truly understood. The radio crackled. Flight 782, cleared for pushback and startup. Lara smiled faintly. The sound of those words never got old. Cleared for pushback and startup. Flight 782, she repeated smoothly, her tone calm and professional. As the tug connected beneath them and the aircraft slowly began to move, Lara's hands hovered over the controls. Outside, the ground crew waved them off, their orange batons glowing against the early sunlight. Inside, everything was motion, harmony, and control. The GoPro light blinked again, recording the moment her Boeing began to roll backward. Lara's lips curved into a quiet, confident smile, the kind that said she belonged here, among switches, skies, and silence. "Engines coming alive," Jason called out. "Roger that," she replied softly, her voice filled with calm purpose. As the engine spooled up with a deep rising hum, the cockpit filled with the familiar vibration of power and possibility. Lara leaned back slightly, eyes fixed on the horizon beyond the glass. "Another day," she whispered. "Another sky." The deep rumble of the CFM56 engines filled the air like thunder held in control. Each turbine spun faster, blades blurring into invisible circles of raw power. The vibration flowed through the cockpit floor, up through the seats, into Lara's hands as she gripped the thrust levers. Engine 1 stabilized. "Engine 2 stable," Jason confirmed, eyes scanning the N1 gauges. The rhythmic rising whine settled into a smooth, confident hum. Lara's gaze was fixed forward, her reflection merging with the runway lights ahead. "Flaps set 5, trim checked, auto brake RTO," she said softly, her tone calm, but charged with quiet energy. Jason nodded. "Checklist complete, Captain. Ready for taxi. Let's do it." She released the parking brake with a soft metallic click, and the Boeing 737-800 began to roll. The nose dipped slightly as the tug disconnected, the aircraft gliding gracefully down the taxiway. Outside, the morning had fully awakened. The sun shimmered on the runway, painting streaks of gold on the fuselage. Ground control chatter filled the radio. Clearances, instructions, wind calls, an orchestra of aviation language flowing around them. "Runway 27 right. Cleared for takeoff. Flight 782, the tower announced. Lara smiled faintly. That small, confident curve she wore every time before takeoff. "Cleared for takeoff, 27 right. Flight 782, she replied smoothly, her voice crisp and controlled. Jason gave her a nod. "Let's make it smooth." The GoPro above them blinked red, recording every motion, every vibration, every subtle glance. Lara aligned the 737's nose perfectly with the runway centerline, the long white stripes stretching endlessly ahead. The world seemed to pause for a breath. Inside the cockpit, only the ticking of instruments and the hum of systems broke the silence. She rested her right hand on the thrust levers. "Set takeoff thrust." Jason's hand joined hers for a brief second. Coordinated teamwork. Then he adjusted the levers forward until the engines roared with full thrust, spooling up with a low growl that rose to a clean, powerful scream. The acceleration pushed them gently into their seats. The runway lights rushed beneath them, streaks of white and amber flashing by the windows. Lara kept her hand steady, eyes locked forward. Scanning the instruments. 80 knots, Jason called. "Checked," Lara replied, her tone steady as her hands lightly danced on the yoke. The world blurred outside, terminals flashing by, taxiway lights fading behind. The GoPro caught the reflection of the city skyline ahead, glowing in early morning light. "V1, Jason called, his voice firm. Lara's heart aligned with the rhythm of the engines. "Rotate." She eased the control column back smoothly, the motion practiced, graceful and precise. The nose lifted, breaking free from the ground. The vibration softened into a floating silence as the wheels left the runway. And just like that, they were airborne. The rising sun poured through the cockpit windows, flooding the panels in warm gold. The GoPro captured her serene smile, the corners of her mouth softening as the aircraft climbed through the first thin layer of cloud. "Positive rate," Jason said. "Gear up," she replied, pushing the lever upward. The deep clunk of the retracting landing gear echoed through the fuselage. The aircraft climbed smoothly, the city below shrinking into a mosaic of lights and roads. Rivers shimmered like threads of silver. The horizon stretched infinitely ahead, painted in hues of orange and blue. Lara adjusted the pitch slightly. "Flaps 1, she commanded. "Flaps 1 set," Jason confirmed, his voice calm but full of admiration. He'd flown with many captains, but there was something about Lara. Her stillness in motion, her precision that felt effortless. Every move was confident, quiet, controlled. Outside, the plane pierced through a thin veil of clouds. For a brief moment, everything turned white. Then, bursting through, the world opened up into endless blue sky. Lara smiled softly, eyes glinting in the light. "There it is," she whispered, almost to herself. "The sky never disappoints," Jason chuckled. "Still gets you every time, doesn't it?" "Every single time." The radio crackled with the controller's voice. "Flight 782. Contact departure on 124.7, good day. Over to departure." 24-7, good day, Lara responded. "Switching frequencies. Departure. Flight 782 passing 3,000 feet for 10,000. Flight 782. Climb and maintain flight level 350. Climb and maintain flight level 350, she repeated smoothly, dialing in the autopilot settings. The engine settled into a steady, powerful hum as the aircraft continued its climb through the golden haze, wings catching the sunlight in a soft glimmer. Inside the cabin, passengers relaxed into their seats, unaware of the technical symphony unfolding at the front of the aircraft. They only felt the smooth lift, the gentle climb, the serenity of a perfect takeoff. In the cockpit, the world was focused silence. The rhythmic click of switches, the low murmur of instruments, and the calm breathing of two pilots in perfect sync. Lara adjusted her headset and took a quiet breath. "Gear up, flaps up, climb checklist complete." Jason looked over and smiled. "Nice and clean, Captain." "Just how I like it," she replied, eyes still forward. The GoPro camera captured everything, her composed expression, the sunlight reflecting on her flight wings, the steady rhythm of her hands on the controls. Down below, the airport was now just a patch of gray and green, fading into distance. Above them stretched the open sky, pure freedom. For a brief moment, Lara leaned back and smiled, not for the camera, not for the passengers, but for herself. The takeoff had been perfect, smooth, balanced. Every second had been a blend of art and science, of precision and instinct. Jason glanced at her. "You make it look easy, Captain," she laughed softly. "It's never easy. It's just beautiful." The aircraft climbed higher, leaving trails of white mist behind, disappearing into the endless blue, and the GoPro kept recording, capturing the magic of flight, the quiet triumph of a pilot who made the sky her home. The Boeing 737-800 cruised smoothly at 35,000 feet, slicing through the high-altitude winds like a silver arrow. Outside the cockpit windows, the world had transformed into a dreamscape. Endless layers of soft white clouds stretched to infinity, glowing beneath the golden rays of the morning sun. Inside, the cockpit was a sanctuary of quiet motion. The steady hum of engines, the gentle clicks of switches, and the muted murmur of the radio forming a rhythm every pilot knew by heart. Captain Lara Mitchell leaned slightly forward in her seat, her voice calm and clear through the headset. "Set heading 270. Maintain flight level 350. Heading 270, level 350 set," replied Jason, adjusting the mode control panel with a quick, precise touch. The autopilot responded instantly. A slight turn to the west, wings tilting gracefully, slicing through a wisp of cloud like silk. Sunlight spilled across Lara's face, glinting off the golden captain's stripes on her shoulders. She raised a hand to adjust the sunshade, but then paused, the way the light reflected across the cockpit instruments. The deep orange glow on her visor. It was too beautiful to block out. She smiled quietly. Some views are worth the glare. Jason reached into his thermos bag and handed her a paper cup. "Coffee, Captain, still hot." "2 sugars, no milk." She accepted it with a soft grin. "You're learning fast, First Officer." I figured the captain who flies like poetry must drink her coffee the same way. Lara chuckled. You talk too much for a pilot. Occupational hazard, Jason replied, shrugging with a grin. They both laughed lightly, the sound gentle, human, cutting through the hum of the machinery. The GoPro camera, mounted neatly above the main panel, caught the moment perfectly. The relaxed laughter, the gleam of sunlight, and the calm confidence of two pilots mid-flight. Outside, the clouds drifted like cotton fields below them, endless and pure. From their altitude, the horizon looked like a painted line between heaven and earth, a blend of silver, gold, and pale blue stretching beyond imagination. The curvature of the planet was faintly visible, giving everything a quiet, humbling perspective. Jason glanced out the side window. You ever get tired of this view, Captain? Lara looked up from her instruments, her eyes tracing the horizon. Never. Every sky is different. Every sunrise reminds me why I fly. He nodded, thoughtful. You've been flying for, 15 years? 17, she said softly. 12 on commercial routes, 5 before that. Cargo, regional, anything with wings. Jason smiled, and still that spark. Lara looked ahead, her voice quieter now. The day I stop feeling it, I'll stop flying. The sky deserves pilots who still feel something. For a while, neither of them spoke. The cockpit settled into a peaceful silence, filled only by the rhythmic beeping of altitude holds and the low hum of the air conditioning. Lara sipped her coffee slowly, her eyes moving across the displays, speed, heading, fuel flow, navigation point, everything perfectly stable. Autopilot holding steady, Jason said, scanning the instruments. Next waypoint in 8 minutes. Copy that, Lara replied, jotting it into her logbook with elegant precision. The pen glided across the page like her aircraft through the air, steady, deliberate, confident. A few minutes later, they passed over a massive formation of thunderclouds, towering white giants rising tens of thousands of feet below. From above, they looked peaceful, soft, radiant, harmless. But Lara knew the truth. Beneath those clouds were winds and turbulence that could test even the strongest airframe. She glanced at them briefly and smiled. You see that? Nature looks gentle from up here, but you always respect what's below. Jason nodded. That's the first thing they teach in flight school. Never underestimate the weather. And the second, Lara added, is never overestimate yourself. Her tone wasn't a warning, it was wisdom, delivered in calm air. The kind of wisdom only thousands of hours in the sky could teach. The GoPro camera, still recording, captured her reflection in the glass, the faint outline of her face, lit by sunlight and surrounded by the glowing cockpit instruments. She looked composed, graceful, fully in control, a woman in command of the sky. A soft chime broke the quiet. Passing waypoint Alpha. Next direct to Biker, Jason read from the flight management display. Roger, Lara said, entering the next course. Adjust to 275. Keep speed at Mach 0.78. Speed set. Course 275, confirmed. Outside, the plane sliced through a thin cloud bank, and the cockpit filled with a soft halo of white mist. For a few moments, everything outside turned milky and infinite, as if the world had vanished, leaving only the aircraft and the sky. Lara stared ahead, mesmerized. You know, sometimes I forget how surreal this job is. We live between worlds, not on the ground, not quite in space. Just in the clouds. Jason smiled. That's poetic, Captain. She turned to him, half smiling. Poetry or physics? Depends who's asking. The GoPro lens blinked red again, capturing her calm composure. Her hand resting on the throttle, her eyes focused but soft. The faint trace of a smile that came only when she flew. After a few moments, Lara spoke again, her voice a little more reflective. You ever think about how small everything looks down there? Jason nodded. Yeah, all the noise, all the rush. It's tiny from up here. That's why I love this, she said softly. Up here, everything makes sense. There's order, there's balance. It's peaceful. The aircraft continued its steady journey through the endless blue, sunlight glimmering on the wings like liquid gold. Inside, there was serenity. The steady pulse of flight, the quiet companionship of two aviators, and the constant rhythm of life at 35,000 feet. As Lara leaned back slightly, the GoPro caught one final moment, her silhouette framed against the glowing horizon, calm eyes reflecting the infinite sky ahead. In that instant, Captain Lara Mitchell wasn't just flying a machine. She was where she belonged. Above the world, between the clouds, at peace. The day had begun in soft gold, but now the horizon burned with hues of amber and violet. The Boeing 737-800 glided smoothly through the descending layers of evening sky, its wings cutting across the fading sunlight like brushstrokes on a painting. Captain Lara Mitchell glanced at the clock on the main panel. It was nearly sunset. The light outside had softened, that perfect golden haze that made every descent feel almost spiritual. Cabin crew, "Prepare for landing," she announced over the intercom, her calm voice filling the cabin. Somewhere behind her, passengers stirred. Window shades lifted, seatbelts clicked, and phones were switched to airplane mode. The low murmur of conversation faded as everyone settled in. In the cockpit, it was a world of quiet concentration. The GoPro camera, still recording, blinked steadily from above the main panel, capturing the soft glow of instruments, the calm rhythm of breathing, and the silent language between two pilots who needed no extra words. "Descent checklist complete," Jason said, his tone focused. Lara nodded, her hands resting lightly on the thrust levers. The autopilot guided the aircraft down through 12,000 feet, descending smoothly toward their destination. The air outside shimmered orange and pink, reflecting off the aircraft's nose like polished copper. "Flaps 5, she commanded. "Flaps 5, set." The whirring sound of hydraulics filled the cockpit as the flaps extended along the wings. Changing their shape to catch more air, the aircraft slowed slightly, its nose dipping as the altimeter numbers rolled downward. Lara took a sip of water and exhaled softly. "Weather looks calm," she said, scanning the radar. "Winds at 190, 6 knots. Visibility 10 miles. Perfect conditions." Jason smiled. Good ending for a beautiful flight. She smiled back, but her focus never wavered. The landing phase was sacred, a pilot's ultimate test of touch and timing. Approach control. "Flight 782, established on the ILS runway 27 right," Jason transmitted. "Flight 782, cleared to land runway 27 right," came the reply. Lara's eyes softened. Cleared to land. Those words always felt special. Permission to return home to the earth. "Cleared to land 27 right," she repeated. Her voice was calm, confident, and precise. The runway lights twinkled in the distance, tiny diamonds through the evening haze. Each second they grew clearer, a string of lights guiding them back down from the heavens. Flaps 15. Flaps 15 set. The 737 continued its descent, steady as a heartbeat. The GoPro captured every motion, Lara's steady hands, the flickering instrument reflections on her face, and the faint shimmer of light in her eyes as the runway drew near. "Gear down," she said softly. "Gear down. 3 green," Jason confirmed. The unmistakable thump of the landing gear locking into place echoed through the cockpit. The altimeter ticked past the 500 feet. The glide slope lined up perfectly. Lara placed her right hand on the yoke, left hand on the throttles, the dance of precision she'd performed 1,000 times. Flaps 30. Flaps 30. Set. The hum of the engine softened as she reduced thrust, feeling the aircraft settle into the final approach. The runway stretched ahead, glowing under the fading sun. Inside the cabin, passengers pressed their faces to the windows. Some whispered prayers, others simply watched the lights drawing nearer. To them, it was just landing. To Lara, it was art. 500, Jason called, watching the radio altimeter. "Stable," Lara replied, her voice steady. 400. Landing. The nose pitched gently, wings level, speed perfect. The aircraft sliced through the last veil of haze, revealing the airport below, a grid of lights, moving vehicles, and tiny figures waiting on the ramp. 200. Lara's eyes narrowed slightly. Full focus. 100. The runway rushed beneath them now, close enough to see the paint lines. 50. 40. 30. Jason called. Lara eased the yoke back slightly. 20. 10. The main wheels touched down, a soft, graceful kiss against the runway. The engines roared into reverse thrust, the wings flexed gently, and the aircraft slowed with perfect balance. The passengers erupted in applause, their cheers muffled but audible through the cockpit door. Lara smiled faintly, her hands still steady on the controls. The GoPro caught that smile, not of pride, but quiet satisfaction. Speed 60 knots, Jason reported. Manual braking, Lara replied, easing the levers back to idle. The aircraft rolled gracefully down the runway, slowing to taxi speed. Jason exhaled, grinning. Another smooth one, Captain. She turned slightly, the sunset reflecting in her visor. Just the way we like it. They exited the runway, the taxi lights guiding them toward the terminal. The engines hummed softly, cooling after their powerful performance. The airport bathed in orange light, the sky now painted with deep purples and golds, the perfect closing scene. Taxi to Gate 12. Flight 782, came the tower's final call. Gate 12. Roger, Jason replied. As the aircraft rolled along the taxiway, Lara finally let herself relax. She reached up, removing her headset, and listened to the quiet hum of systems and faint applause from the cabin. She glanced once more at the GoPro's blinking red light, capturing the last few moments of the journey, her calm smile, the golden light framing her face, the gleam of satisfaction only a perfect landing could bring. Flight complete, Jason said, logging the time. Lara nodded, her eyes drifting toward the horizon one more time. The last of the sunlight shimmered across the wingtip, a reminder of everything she loved about this life. For the love of flying, she whispered under her breath. Jason heard her, smiled and looked out at the sky as the engines slowly wound down. Outside, ground crew surrounded the plane, guiding it to the gate. Inside, Lara sat quietly for a moment longer, listening to the silence, feeling the heartbeat of the aircraft fade beneath her fingertips. The GoPro recorded the final seconds, the glow of cockpit lights dimming, her hands resting still, her expression peaceful. Captain Lara Mitchell, once again, had brought her bird home, smooth, steady, and graceful as always. As the engines shut down completely, she leaned back in her seat, closed her eyes for a brief moment, and smiled. Another flight complete. Another story written in the sky.